evening and welcome to 16 by 9, The Bigger Picture. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. It's the most sacred day in the Christian calendar, and in today's world, a commercial blitz. Easter, a time for the chocolate industry to cash in. But what many may not realize when they're getting their chocolate fix this year is just who's behind it. Kids, some as young as 10, are fueling a child labor movement in the cocoa fields of Western Africa. Our Catherine Pope takes us to Ghana with a look at the darker side of chocolate.
Children in Canada love eating chocolate, but while they indulge in this sweet treat, some children who have never tasted chocolate are forced to work on cocoa bean farms in West Africa.
It's very sweet.
Chocolate is made from cocoa beans, which grow in pods on trees.
You have some beans in it, counting about 50 to 60 beans. You can eat it like toffee. But the rare bean, if I bite it, is very bitter.
Cocoa beans are Ghana's biggest cash crop, but it's a bittersweet harvest because of the common use of child labor. Ghana's Gold Coast, as it used to be known, was once the center of West Africa's slave trade. In some ways, the practice continues. To find the children of the cocoa bean, we drove hundreds of kilometers down bumpy, almost impassable roads and trekked deep into the heart of the cocoa region. This teenager says he's been toiling at this every day since he was 13. BK is just 9 years old. He spends 8 hours a day working the cocoa beans. The use of child labor and the trafficking of children to work on the cocoa bean farms is a problem the government is struggling to deal with. Matthew Daly investigates child trafficking.
Conditions generally are bad for them. It's generally bad for them. They work under very harsh conditions, under very terrible environments. Some are beaten up.
Everywhere we went, children told us stories about abusive labor conditions. He said his mother wouldn't feed him unless he worked. This little girl's job was to spray the cocoa with insecticides.
At what age did she start working in the cocoa bean farm?
9 years.
13 years.
13 years now.
This boy worked 7 days a week, tending the cocoa pods.
He was weeding, he used to weed.
In this part of the world, even the wealthiest cocoa bean farmer makes less than $500 per year. They live in small huts with large families. There is no electricity, running water, or sewer systems. Elementary school is free, but some parents force their children to work instead.
Why were your children working on the cocoa bean farm?
Because I were not having money.
Is that wrong to use children on the cocoa bean farms?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
But you needed the money.
Yes.
The big chocolate companies say they're doing their part to help conditions for children working on the cocoa farms. But only one, Cadbury, has promised to use fair trade cocoa in one of its candy bars. And none were available for an on-camera interview with 16 by 9. Even more disturbing is the buying and selling of children. Traffickers sometimes pay parents for their child, then move them onto the cocoa bean farms. Child labor is not uncommon in Ghana. This 6-year-old works 12 hours a day selling water.
How much? Say? 100 cedis.
She'll make about 40 cents by sunset. This boy works 7 days a week sifting for gold. How much could a child potentially be bought for?
On the average, about 200,000 cedis.
Which is about
$20,000 thereabout.
But the Ghanaian government is under pressure to rid the cocoa bean farms of child labor because Westerners are huge consumers of chocolate. So they're trying to get the kids off the farms and into school. The government pays for the children's uniforms and books. Their parents give in groceries to compensate them for the loss of the child labor. And for the first time, they're allowed to play, a freedom some never had because they were too busy working the cocoa beans. Rita Damoa of the Farmers Union believes children must be educated, not forced to work.
It means we are denying the children that of going to school. So it's bad. It means it will affect the child in future.
Farmers are starting to realize the benefits of fair trade. If they join the union, they get a guaranteed fair price for their beans. Child labor is not allowed, and the profits go back into the community. Fair trade beans paid for this water pump, providing clean, fresh drinking water for everyone, a luxury this village has never been able to afford. And other equipment, like this small corn mill, have been purchased with the profits from fair trade, so people are getting better nutrition. The Farmers Union is trying to encourage chocolate brokers to buy more of it.
What would you like people who eat chocolate in Canada to know?
I just want people in Canada to go in for fair trade chocolate, because just a bite of the chocolate, as I've said, has a greater impact on the lives of the people over here. So they should go in for the fair trade produce, and that will help us a lot.
In Canada, fair trade chocolate is regulated by Transfair. Michael Zelmer says buying fair trade makes a huge difference.
That means that they won't be forced to work on farms, which is a problem that's endemic in Western Africa. There's a lot of child slavery on cocoa farms and just child labor in general. And so with the fair trade certification standards, you're not allowed to have, well, certainly there's no forced labor, and then labor of children under 15 years of age is also controlled. Essentially, it's that it cannot prevent them from going to school, it can't do anything that will affect their life chances. It's also important because it ensures that their families get paid a decent price for their labor. And fair trade certified cocoa comes entirely from democratically run cooperatives of small-scale producers.
That will triple the amount of fair trade chocolate produced in Guyana. But in a country saddled with crushing poverty, the use of child labor is endemic. And that's a problem Canadian children will never get a taste of.